Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I'm joined by Kevin Graham and Russell Boyce for what is sure to be an action-packed ACSOM Bulletin. Just waiting to get all the updates coming in from the club and from the First Minister. What an omni-shambles Celtic find themselves in, of their own making. The only thing positive that we can report coming out of Celtic Park is the test results. I mean, there's nothing positive I can pull from that club at this moment in time. Some people are unhappy with that, Kevin. And, you know, there was a broadcast went out, and I'm going to mention it because, you know, you've got to be informed. A podcast came out yesterday, episode 1, and they've used their time to criticise the Celtic State of Mind for criticising the club. Get a grip. Get a grip of yourself. Celtic have absolutely destroyed the most important season in the history of the club. And I would love for anybody to try and put a positive twist on it. And I'd love for anybody to argue the toss that they haven't. We've just had a report coming through on Sky Sports News to say that 13 players, plus John Kennedy, plus Neil Lennon, are self-isolating because Christopher Jullien, a player who was injured for 3 to 4 months, travelled to Dubai, contracted the virus, and these guys have obviously been in close contact with him. Now, the reason this is 60 seconds delayed or so before getting started, I've just watched Nicola Sturgeon's comments on the saga, on the fiasco, on the omni-shambles that is Celtic Football Club. And she's basically said that it's over to the football authorities. However, she is not convinced that the trip can be justified. So, Kevin Graham, over to you first of all, from the most negative Celtic fan in the history of the club. Over to you, sir. What's your thoughts today as we go into a game against Hibs? 13 players down.
Well, it's the biggest shambles since Dale and Rodney went to Margate for a day out. It's unreal. Just when you think that things can't get any worse, do they get worse? I've actually just got a text message of the team tonight, so he's ready for it. I kind of shouldn't, and I kind of got into trouble for doing this before, but I'm going to do it. So the team for the night is Latchford, McGrain, Lynch, Aiken, McDonald, McLeod, Provan, Sullivan, McGarvey, McCluskey and Archdeacon, with Ayeti and Kamala on the bench. That's the team for the night, eh?
Aye, and Luke O'Connell on the bench as well, aye.
Luke O'Connell's on the bench. And at least the laptop hasn't got COVID, eh? We're lucky for that, eh? This is an utter shambles. Heads should roll. This is like when you just thought this season couldn't get any worse. It just now slaps you about the face with a fish. You have to laugh. You really do have to laugh if it wasn't as serious, eh? We are a laughing stock of world football, well, Scottish football, British football, and basically the next statement that comes out of Celtic Park should be guys resigning for this. Mm-hmm. And that should be the next statement that comes out of Celtic Park. And I've got a message for that podcast. Keep the faith, boys, because you're going to need it.
Well, you just need to open your eyes. They're living with blind faith. I think it's preposterous for anybody to suggest that a Celtic State of Mind are in any way trying to fulfil a position much like historical Scottish mainstream media channels, in that we're going to try and leather our own club at every opportunity. That's just a nonsense, and it doesn't wash with me. And yeah, I think there is a right to reply, because we built this platform up over a period of 3.5 years. We have 11 different pundits every single week, plus a few irregular ones, Kevin, and literally hundreds and thousands of people commenting on every broadcast. We have a good cross-section of Celtic opinions. It's not about my opinion, and it's not about Kevin Graham's opinion or even Russell Boyce's. It's about airing opinions. I listen to Kevin, I listen to others. players, I see some of the comments coming through and it challenges your own views on the situation. That's what it's all about. It's about debate. So don't set up, just for the amateurs out there, don't set up a podcast and make it your first mission within the first 5 minutes to try and, take a shot at a fellow Celtic podcast. This is a community where 20 podcasts got together and cheques have been presented to 4 different charities, each over $6,500, because the Celtic community pulled together over Christmas to help mental health, homelessness, vulnerable kids and food banks. So whoever they are, they really need to take a good look at themselves. In fact, they should pull the video because it's pathetic. This is about us looking at a club that was going for 10 in a row, Kevin, and we, as a club, now you can go on about the management, you can go on about the SFA, you can go on about Nicola Sturgeon. As a club, we have completely ballsed up this season, and monumentally. Russell, I'm going to come over to you. I've been reading your tweets with interest, because you've said one of these Mondays you're going to come on and it's all going to be fun and laughter, and we can talk about positive elements of the club. Are we any closer to that?
Absolutely not, Paul. I don't know if I'm a jinx on here on a Monday or what's happening, but yeah, the news coming through early this afternoon, just at 12, is if there ever was a final nail in the coffin required of this season, then it has definitely happened now. I was kind of convinced that when I came on today, I was going to try and brush over the Dubai trip a wee bit if I could, because I just felt it's been spoke about all week and we're all the negative normers, But actually, it's came back to the forefront because it could not have bit us in the backside more than with the news today. I think there's two sides to it. Should we almost be a wee bit relieved that, we're that far behind in the league, we weren't going to win it anyway and this has happened? Can you imagine if there was only a 3.4 point gap right now and we're then going to play Hibs on the Monday night with 13 players out and suddenly fall, a lead behind the Rangers that was, made a big difference in the title race. I think we're almost fortunate that we're that far behind, that this has happened then. And that's about as positive I can be about the situation, to be perfectly honest with you.
Now, Kevin, I think, made an excellent point. And if Kevin makes points that I disagree with and vice versa, we disagree. But I think you made a great point, Kevin. The next statement that comes out, I think, really is a pivotal one in terms of Celtic and the people who run the club at this moment in time. The question has to be asked, because obviously we've heard all the views about, we didn't break any protocols. Okay. How does that one rack up now? You might not have broken any protocols by going, but look at the state that we're in as a result of us going to that trip. So we didn't break any protocols, and we had it signed off from this one, we had it signed off from that one. Kevin Graham, who at the club has the final say on that trip going ahead? Who is that figure?
It will be the same man who's got the final say on the price of the pies. The same man who's got the price, who's got the final say on what left back we sign, what right back we sign. That's Peter Law. It's on his head. It is really on his head that this trip's went ahead, and it's just. The weeks before, Dubai's infection rates were going through the roof. And what really bugs me about the statement that they've actually released, they says, this could have happened at home. Then in the next paragraph of the statement, they go, they reckon it's happened between the flights and the coaches to and from the resort. Well, if you weren't on a plane for 5 hours or however long it gets you to Dubai, then you wouldn't have as much as 13 players. If you weren't beside a pool in a bar, social bonding, then it wouldn't have happened because the players would have been in their own bubbles. And now, anybody that says it was for work purposes, it was for training purposes, a load of rubbish. Why would you take a player who's going to be out for 3 to 4 months on a training trip to Dubai if it was anything other than a team bonding trip? Somebody answer me that. The guy's out for 4 months, so you take him on a training trip to Dubai. No, you've took him there because it's a team bonding trip. That's exactly what it is, and that's what it's been proved to be. And it's an utter sham. And if the SFA, the SPFL decide to throw the book at us, I can't argue with it one little bit.
Russell, just before I ask you your predicted 11 for tonight, obviously Neil Lennon and John Kennedy are two of the people who are self-isolating. Who takes the team? Who's in the dugout?
I mean, obviously, we know who the favourite will be. It'll be the laptop with Gavin Strachan as his assistant. I'm not really sure what direction. I mean, it might be a good thing, you never know. I mean, we've not been happy with the management performance this season. It might be a breath of fresh air what we see tonight, you never know. I guess it must be Strachan. Would I be right in thinking that? I mean, I can't think of who else it can be that can take the team.
Do you pull up
the old dialer up in the stand? I don't know what's going to happen.
Do you pull up a couple, maybe Kevin could answer this, do you bring up a couple of the guys who are involved in training some of the development sides? Do you bring up Stephen? I mean, you need a coaching team, don't you? You need a coaching team to prepare that game and obviously manage that game. So obviously they guys, if they're in isolation, they won't be in the stadium. I mean, they're going to be isolating at home. And, you know, it's just one of these things. Let's look at the actual logistics of this now. So we're going into a game against Hibs. It's going to be a tough enough fixture as it is. We're already down Julian and now another 13 on top of that. I mean, Kevin, it's mind-boggling as to what the repercussions of this might be just on the football park. But beyond that, where do we go from here as a club? Because this is slowly unravelled throughout the season. We have covered every nuance of what's going wrong, every wee bit that we felt was going right. You and I teamed up yesterday. We were talking about signing targets. We were talking about all this kind of stuff. Damien Duff coming back. Oh yeah, brilliant. And then this happens. So as soon as you're trying to get on an even keel, they just keep pulling the rug from under your feet.
Look, I says a couple of weeks ago, I says last week that this is about goodwill, and they were never going to. And I said yesterday about Indiana Jones being in a fridge. It's even worse than Indiana Jones being in a fridge now. This is utterly nuclear. You're looking for the whole Marvel heroes to come and try and save the goodwill with the Celtic support. I'm sitting here paid £600. I'm sitting here paid £600, and I'm not going to go. I'm not going to get to a game all season. And now we're basically, of our own accord, made a decision in a global pandemic to go to a country with one of the highest infection rates of COVID, and now we've got 13 players out. The goodwill is utterly gone for this season, and it's no matter what. I mean, the team will get whatever team's out there will get my support tonight. But there's no way the football coaching, the guys who make the decisions on the coaching side and the executive level of the club are going to get my support whatsoever now. This is utterly shameful, and heads should actually roll before the end of the day.
Do you think they will? No,
they won't. So, no, of course they won't. They'll say, oh, it was unfortunate. You actually just see the tone of the statement. They won't change nothing.
Well, Russell,
it's really, really annoying me, and like I think I was called bitter and entitled last week when I says that I would take my season ticket money back just now if they offered my season ticket money back. And that's not been bitter and entitled. What's been bitter and entitled is actually going to Dubai during a global pandemic and rubbing ordinary fans' noses in it when we can't go to the pub, when we can't visit family and friends, when we can't visit people in care homes, when we're working for him. That's what we need to do. Send the players to work for him and actually play this whole season on FIFA or sensible soccer for now at the end of the season. Get them to work for him.
The big thing, Russell, is over the years, as Celtic supporters, we've looked at all the other exterior kind of factors in the game, in the Scottish game, and the things that we're focused on have been the authorities. But the best thing to do if that is the case, or when that is the case, is to make sure that you're whiter than white. And what Celtic have done is we've just made ourselves a sitting duck. And what I hate is seeing the club that we all love putting ourselves in that position, because the whole of Scottish football, this is on the same day that every level of Scottish football, including the Scottish Cup, has been suspended underneath the Championship until the end of January. Yep. So at the moment, Celtic are going to win any competition. We can't play in any competition that we can win at this moment in time. So the whole of Scottish football are looking at that, and there's clubs looking down the barrel of a gun whereby they're going to be struggling to get out of this lockdown. They're going to be struggling to get out of this pandemic. There'll be a load of clubs who are going to be casualties. Yet the biggest club, the most successful and the richest club, the one that should be a role model to others, are basically making a total full of everybody that supports that club, everybody that buys a season ticket. And not only that, Russell, right, and this is something that I have been critical of the club, and people who criticise us for being critical, there's a big difference between simply being negative. Being negative is watching something unfold and then looking for negatives. I can't find a positive here. So when you're looking at where Celtic are at this moment in time, and we're going to be dealing with the here and now, so we're going to be talking about the Hibs game in just a second. How on earth, if they can, do Celtic recover? And what I mean from that is the goodwill that Kevin Graham is losing rapidly at the bottom of the screen, and many other fans like him. How do Celtic repair that goodwill? Is it repairable? Because I love Celtic, and as Kevin says, it doesn't matter who plays tonight. I'll be supporting whoever's wearing a green and white jersey because I support the club. But when you're run by a group of people who are so disengaged from the support, where do they go from here? Because, we can't completely overhaul the squad overnight. Yeah, you can change the manager and the coaching staff. Don't think it's going to make a difference between now and the end of the season. But then you then start looking at, the higher reaches of the club, and you look at the board members, you look at the CEO, the guys making the decisions. And, that needs a complete overhaul, because they have lost the faith of the Celtic support, who they are now going to be asking for more money when the season tickets come in for renewal. Now, it seems to me, and again, this went down like a lead balloon, the only time that they're interested in engaging is round about that time that they need us to renew season tickets, and round about Christmas time where they need to sell merch. Now, there's loads of good people work for Celtic who are not in the public eye, who don't wear the jersey, who don't play the games, and they are fearful of their jobs. And their jobs are based on guys like you and me buying season tickets. But the club, the guys at the top, are putting us in a position like Kevin Graham. 40 years this guy's supported Celtic. He's ran buses. He's been involved in the affiliation, helping other Celtic supporters clubs all over Scotland. And he's already considering whether or not to renew that ticket. Did the club not see what's happening in front of them? Did they not see that this is unravelling at a rapid rate?
It's unbelievable. I think in terms of what they can do to repair it, obviously, I can't see any way that they'll get rid of the management team. I think that would be the first starting point. I think up the top, I think there's been obviously talk in the past about this might be Lawwell's last season as well. I have read that. You almost think it would all make sense if it was to be everyone's last season, and that is what's led to such rash decisions, or such decisions with such little care about, the end result of making such decisions. I think looking at what we can do to try and repair it in the short term is almost an impossible question, Paul, because I'm not entirely sure there's an answer right now that would go anyway. We can't win that league, in my opinion. I'd love to say that we will. I know it's mathematically possible. Maybe that is negativity on my part, but the evidence of what I've seen in the park so far this season suggests we won't win the league. So when that's written off, and all you've got is a Scottish Cup that potentially isn't going to get played this season, there's not really a lot that the club can do now to repair it. Where they go from here, there's also very interesting. Whilst Kev's in a tricky position, so are they. Because like you say about selling tickets, how on earth do they promote that Celtic brand on the back of the most embarrassing train crash of a season, train wreck of a season, whatever the saying is, ever? How do they start, like you say, they might start popping up, as they always do at the same times, looking for season ticket cash, trying to sell merchandise. The new Adidas kit comes out, the whole, the training kits and all that. How do you sell them on the back of this season? So whilst it's a very difficult position for the fans to be put in right now, I find their position extremely sticky, unless, of course, they already know that they're all off-ski in the summer anyway, and it's someone else's problems.
Kevin, coming back to you on that point, and obviously these things change by the day, but you've been involved in, I use the term meet and greet, but I don't mean an old pals act. Through the affiliation and involvement that you've had in the past, you've met people like Peter Lowell, Kevin. You've been at these forums, you've heard the views of fans and fans groups being pitched to the club, and it's been your view, correct me if I'm wrong, that often they just play lip service. They just pay you lip service. Now, the AGM last month, and we were on the Bulletin actually as it unfolded live, would it have been expected at that stage, if there was a plan for Peter Lowell to stand down at the end of the season, would that have been announced at the AGM necessarily, or is that something that's fluid and can change as events like the ones that we're currently witnessing happen?
I don't know if that would have been announced at the AGM. You think back in history of when managers, we'll go back to when we stopped Rangers doing their 10 and they announced Walter Smith was leaving, Brian Laudrup was leaving. Sometimes the club gets into a flux and can recover. I would have thought something executive level would have been announced at the AGM, something as big as your El Capitano, your ruler, your North Korean president leaving would have been announced at the AGM. Somebody who's got control over absolutely everything would have been announced at the AGM. I was involved in supporters activism for a while, and nothing gets done. And that's not a fault of the groups. It's not a fault of the people involved in the groups. It's a way that the club is run. But this is up here worse than anything in the White and Kellys. There's no worse. No, the White and Kellys nearly ran the club into the ground. There's no way Celtic are going to go bust after this, but this is part of what I've been calling out for the last 5-6 years. The club is an utter shambles, and they've been getting away with it. And now everything's completely all messed up, and they're not getting away with it, and people are just realising what I've been shouting about for years. The club is an utter shambles. And I'm sitting here going, give us a refund, give us this. I might not renew. But I know for a fact it'll be the young lasses in the ticket office, it'll be the people who help out John Paul Taylor, it'll be the admin staff, it'll be the girls and the guys in HR will actually get hit with us not renewing. And that utterly leaves a bad taste in my throat. But the only way that this club listens is when you withhold money, is when they have to put tarpaulin on the top of the upper tier, when they have to shut the upper tier for Europa League games. That's the only time they engage and actually listen. With this is an utter. This is like they've actually shat in your sandwich and tried to feed you it now. And this is where we are. Sorry for swearing. This is where we are. And I'm going, how can you actually now try to sell us anything in the next 6 months? How can you utterly try and sell us anything in the next 6 months when you've been the masters of your own downfall? And we always says that there would be, but I never expected this. This is like they've actually loaded their own gun at Russian roulette and ended up blowing their brains out.
Listen, Kev, I think it was maybe this time last week, and it was on the back actually, the Dubai images, being unearthed. And I said that there was an element of that picture typifying everything that's wrong with Celtic at the moment. Fat, lazy and arrogant. Now what I meant by that is fat, we're no fit. The club, the players, they're no fit. I mean, Lee Griffiths has come out and he's admitted that. How can you have a striker who only gets fit in December? How can you buy a £5 million player in a Yeti who still know you're fit to play? So yeah, that's what I meant by that. Lazy, I think they're lazy in their approach to the fans, exactly personified by some of the examples that Kevin has just given us there. They're lazy in engaging with their fans. We have tried time and time again to engage with the club, and I don't mean the interview with Peter Lowell. Kevin knows the efforts that have gone into trying to engage with this football club over the last 3.5 years on this platform, and it's not happened because they're lazy. And the arrogant for me is the way that we've gone about our business in Dubai. The way we went about the aftermath of the protests, I felt was very arrogant. And again, you could probably bring in the actual communication aspect and how they engage or fail to engage with the supporters. Now, this is a guy, Kevin, you said, I've asked you the question, who ultimately signed this off, Peter Lowell. This is a man who, he influences where you can have a fag break at Celtic Park. If you leave the building for a smoke, Peter Lowell has influenced where you can stand to have that cigarette. Yet, he hasn't seen anything wrong. This man who is a controlling CEO to the point where managers have left the club sees nothing wrong in November when everything was signed off for this trip. He didn't realise that, we weren't in a lockdown, because I hear that argument as well at that time. But it was likely that we were going to go back into one, Kevin. We've been fearing it for months. Businesses have been fearing it for months. People who rely on going to their jobs so that they've got childcare and they can put their kids into nurseries have been waiting for the announcement for months. Everybody knew it was going to happen. Everybody realised that over Christmas it was going to happen. Yet this guy who controls where his employees can have a cigarette at Celtic Park signs it off. It's gross negligence at the highest level of this football club. So when we're looking at the situation Celtic are in, I also think that there's going to be some far-reaching consequences in terms of our brand. You look at the way that Celtic now are viewed in Scottish football. Now, we could say, it doesn't matter. Well, that's an attitude of saying no one likes us, we don't care. That's not our attitude. That's not the attitude of Celtic Football Club and our supporters. That's the attitude of someone else in a bygone age. So are we at that stage now, Kevin, where all these wee clubs who can't actually play their games, who aren't able to try and generate advertising revenue and sell tickets and sell merch, who have just been told they can't play to the end of the year, they must be looking at Celtic thinking that what I said about them in terms of the arrogance is 100% spot on.
It is. It's almost like your COVID denying next door neighbour, who goes on holiday and says, that wee Sturgeon's no telling me I'm not going on holiday, I'm just going to go anyway, and hell with the consequences when I come back. That's what it's like. That's what it's just showed a complete and utter disregard for the rest of the Scottish game. And we have got a duty to the Scottish game, no matter what you actually think. We've got a duty to the Scottish game. I don't know the ins and outs of the St Mirren and the Kilmarnock dealings, but surely they're looking at this going, well, when are you going to hammer them? Mm-hmm. They've done that. We tried our best on a limited budget. I think St Mirren have been done with not having 2 team buses or their players having a meal before the game. Was that? It's one of them like that. We flew our players in a tin can to Dubai. It's not a pre-match meal that we've done. We've deliberately took them out the country. It's absolutely shocking. And at the top level, it's got to. This is it. End game scenario. I would rather have signed off a trip to the White House last week, the Capitol building. I think it would have been less embarrassing if you would have saw Scott Brown with a Jamiroquai hat on, standing on the steps the steps of the Capitol building. I never usually get embarrassed about stuff that I can't be embarrassed about. I can't control what Celtic Football Club do or the decisions that they make. But for the first time in a long time, I'm actually embarrassed with my football club.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time.
It's embarrassing. Russell, what's your thoughts on that? I'm just going to bring this up for Stephen Kenneth first. It's a message coming in via YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe. All our content is free and we broadcast on a daily basis, even on a Sunday, Kev. Welcome to Group Therapy, as once again we navigate dystopia with no map or signal on our phones. We're far beyond the banter years. We've entered another realm. Sincerely though, get well soon, Julian. And it is important to say we have had players like Edouard before him, like Turnbull, Julian, who have suffered this terrible virus. And yeah, absolutely 100% our thoughts are with the player. But again, where's the duty of care? I mean, people forget this because these guys are athletes, Russell. You know, it doesn't matter about your age. There can be complications with this virus. Where's the duty of care by the club on that player?
No, I don't understand it. I think especially when Kev made the point earlier, this was an injured player going to a training trip. Celtic were very quick to point that out after the photo gate. You know what I mean? Of the ones when they're sitting with the beers or whatever last week that we were discussing. Celtic came out quick fire with the training photos. The sound bites from every interview was about this has been hard work. What was Chris Julian doing then in those 4 days? What hard work could he possibly do with a 3 to 4 month injury? Zilch. Ironically, of course, there was then a photo I seen on one of the blogs this morning of him walking down the stairs at Glasgow Airport holding his crutches in one hand. I mean, no the day, Chris, honestly. Just even if you don't need to use them, just use them. But yeah, it's the duty of care. Absolutely, that is a massive point on it all. But that just goes back to the trip in itself. They shouldn't have went there either way. It's just a nonsense, the whole thing. I thought Natasha made an amazing point last week when she says tone deaf. That just really rung true with me. That is exactly what they are. To not pick up on the vibes when normal people like us can see what the issues are when you go to Dubai, and for them to be on £3 million a year, you know, such as their intelligence or whatever it is they make, I don't really care, and not have the foresight to think that might be a bad idea for them to go on that trip. Maybe we should just rein that in. Firstly, from a health point of view, a health standpoint, which has been completely proven by the fact we're now going to play this, a team of reserves tonight in what was meant to be the biggest season of all time. Also on top of that, as a PR stunt, it was disastrous from the word go, and today is just really taking the biscuit the final time. It's just unbelievable. I don't understand the logic that goes on anymore. And you call it arrogance. I think that's not far off it now, because they can't be this stupid.
Well, that's. I mean, again, we keep getting reminded, Russell, of the importance of the words you choose, and we go live for at least 1 hour every single day. Yep. And obviously that's going to be extended tonight because we'll be covering the game, and every single word you use is analysed, criticised, and the word arrogant is a strong word, but I just feel that at this moment in time I can't see anything that would change my view on that. I think the club and those people who have the ability to communicate with the fans and are simply refusing to do it. And again, it's not because I'm talking about getting an interview on this broadcast. They just don't engage with the wider fan base. It doesn't happen. And I mean, a lot of the stuff is kind of generic statements that come out just to update you. Oh, by the way, yet another player has COVID. Now, another thing that I need to point out, I said at the top of the show that St Roch's were one of the beneficiaries of the charity weekender, where loads of Celtic supporters got together and a huge amount of Celtic podcasts pulled together to put on an event and make some money. And St Roch's were the mental health charity who were able to benefit from that. So let's give a big shout out. Thanks, Mark McMonigal, for pointing this out. Let's give a big shout out to Irish Mick. I hope you're keeping well, man. Anyone who was aware, Irish Mick unfortunately had a bit of a crisis last night, and he was live on YouTube, but thankfully the update is that he is getting the help that he requires. But again, it's a stark reminder of the times that we're living in. We're living in COVID times. We try to be as positive as we can on these podcasts, Kev. It's often difficult, but you've got to remember that it is affecting people mentally. I don't know Michael Collins, I think his name is. I don't know Michael directly, I don't know him personally, but I wish him all the best, and I think the Celtic support, the wider Celtic support, will be of the same view. Just keep an eye on your pals, make sure your friends and your family are doing okay. I think that's the biggest message, Kev, another stark reminder.
Definitely, and you've got other podcasts coming on, no slagging us actually. I think if I was 8, I would have took it as a WWE SmackDown. What they were trying to do to us. I mean, that's unreal. If you're trying to get we all look out for each other. As we say, we do a lot for charity here, and you can't, and hopefully Mick's all right. And this is a problem with going live and doing stuff like that. You can have a meltdown and folk think your memes are going to be great and folk keep on sharing them, but you've got to remember there is a person there, and hopefully Mick's all right. I've actually got a list of the players that are seemingly out.
All right, let's hear it.
So Julian, obviously, Barkas, Hazard, Taylor, Ralston, Henderson, Mikey Johnson, Ayeti, Brown, Elhamed, Rogic, Beaton and Kamala. So that's similarly the players that are the 13 players that I have to isolate.
You've got that access, you've got an eyeball on that, Kevin, so you're the guy I'm going to be asking for a predicted 11 tonight, because I couldn't write them all down as quickly as you were saying it. But Barkas and Hazard, 2 goalies out. Is Bain on that list? I don't think you mentioned Bain.
Bain's not on that list, no.
Who's our 4th choice goalie? Someone will be able to come into the comments and confirm that. So we are looking at a really perilous situation in terms of putting a team together. We're at a situation as well where, when authorities get involved, Russell, often what happens is they will award a team a 3-0 win. So you end up getting a 3-0 defeat. Celtic, I'm not going to say Celtic reserves, because a lot of the players that Kevin mentioned there probably wouldn't have started the game. I think it's safe to say. But an under-strength Celtic side, will we go out and get a better result than a 3-0 reverse tonight, do you think?
Well, you'd like to think so. I think definitely they need to pull together now more than ever. Try and build up some sort of siege mentality. They'll know that they're going to get all the negative press for this. They may well be brainwashed into thinking they've not done anything wrong, and sort of create that siege mentality because they're getting, negative podcasts like you. I'm surprised you've not been blamed for this yet, actually, Paul, this whole thing.
There's time.
But I think, I was a wee bit relieved hearing those names that Kev read out. On the whole, whilst there is some obviously players that perhaps would have started, I don't think it's as bad as it could have been. But that's not an excuse, by the way, Mr. Lawwell, if you are watching. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't get you off the hook. I would like to think that we would get a better result than a 3-0 defeat, absolutely. Surely this trip, it was a hard-working trip. They've been sunned. It's been good for the team, remember? So that's what the whole point of them going there. I'm expecting 3-0 the other way around tonight, Paul, definitely.
Now, Kev, there's a list of players coming up here. I'm just counting them. There's 12 on that list. So who's missing from that list? Who's on your list? Because apparently it's 13
Julian.
players. It's 30. Is Julian included in the 13? Yeah?
Julian's included in the 13.
Right, okay. So how many of the guys do you reckon that's on the screen at the moment, as supplied by Stephen James, would have started tonight? Barkas, of course, would have started.
Doris de Gries would have started. Maybe I wouldn't Beaton's still suspended anyway. Eh? So you're maybe only saying Mikey Johnson out of that.
Potentially.
You're maybe only saying Mikey Johnson out of that. Taylor, maybe. Taylor
I mean, the thing is, Kev, it seems almost futile to be talking about who we're going to actually line up with tonight because of everything else that's happening. But it is a consideration because before I seen the names or so, I'm thinking, this could get nasty. This could be a Hibs v Celtic select team. I don't think it's going to be that. I think we'll have a very weak bench based on the names that are appearing on the screen. Bain's going to start, of course. Yep. Who's your two centre halves? Duffy and Ayer. I would guess. Right and left will be Frimpong and Laxalt. McGregor, Soro, Turnbull, Christie, Edward and Griffiths. I think we'll probably win 3-0. Yeah,
definitely. I agree with that massively. Rogic might still make the bench though, because I felt his coronavirus only last 60 minutes then. Put that in my back pocket all morning.
A wee bit of light humour, that's what's required. So yeah, the game tonight, it's almost like a sideshow. I mean, Kevin and I are going to be covering it this evening, to obviously before the game, half-time and post-match. Kevin Graham, is there anything that can be salvaged from this season? Can anything be salvaged from this season?
You've got... We're in the bizarre situation where we could actually still retain the Scottish Cup. I don't think anything can be salvaged off the field. I don't think anything can be salvaged at all off the field. On the field, we can maybe get bonuses with Turnbull, Soro. Maybe Eddie will start scoring goals, Griffiths will start scoring goals. But off the field, we're in utter shambles. And that can't be recovered whatsoever. That's going to take years to recover. And it's going to take a massive change, both in the coaching staff and also at CEO executive level, for that trust to come back. I think this is maybe the final nail in the coffin of the coaching staff and the CEO. I think this is it. They've all got to bite the bullet for us. Okay, we're still going to put out a strong side. We're still going to put out a side where the 11 players would probably get into the majority of the teams in the Scottish Premier League. But the fact is that our bench is going to be decimated. The fact is you're going to have 13 players isolating is damning. Absolute damning. And what happens, I mean, we've seen St Hamilton, St Mirren have to play weakened teams this season. We're just lucky that it's not a weakened team. But where's the headspace of the team? Where's the headspace of the players now?
Yeah.
And this utter mess that they're finding themselves in.
See, when you look at the isolation period, Kevin, is it 10 days?
It's 10 days, yeah.
And does that start as of today? The announcement? I mean, when does it start? Is this going to take in 2 games? Is there going to be an issue for the Livy game?
If it is 10 days, does that not take in both Livy home and away?
From today, well, the next game will be on the weekend and Wednesday. So again, it could affect us, and then you're just hoping for no one else to pick up injuries in the meantime. So, Kevin, here's a wee positive one for you, because you do get slagged off from time to time, mainly by your fellow presenters. Thomas O'Hara, Kev's a legend, hail, hail. So I think I'll bring that one up. And I'm going to bring up as many of your views as we possibly can, because today is, for me, it's a massive day in the season. It's a massive day, and I'm going to say in the history of the club, because of the disconnect between club and supporter now. Someone out there will be able to tell me, without even glancing at the honours, if you were to look at Celtic's 9 in a row of the 60s and 70s, the 9 in a row that Celtic stopped under Wim Jansen, and the 9 in a row that we are currently still within the midst of, has a team in between those three periods ever dominated the domestic game for any longer than 3 seasons? I think 3 in a row has probably been the greatest achievement by any single club in between the 3 9 in a rows, right? Now, are we moving into a situation, I think the question is, Kevin, whereby that pendulum that has been swinging in our direction for 9 years is going to go elsewhere for a period of something like 3 years? Is it as bad as that? Can we recover quicker than allowing some period of domination elsewhere?
Is that where we are? Are we now at a period where how long do we allow the pendulum to swing to the other side of the city? And the decisions in the summer will the decisions from now to the end of the season will actually affect that going forward. I mean, this could set us back years. It could only set us back 1 year. I mean, you look when we stopped Rangers' quest for 10. I think the 10's cursed, eh? I think the number 10's cursed. I think we need to have a look into that. I think I'll Google that after this. Is the number 10 cursed? When you have a look at that, the following year they went full out with Advocate and basically won the league at Celtic Park on Hugh Dallas's night. I can't see the Celtic board, just because of the financial circumstances and where we are with COVID. I can see this putting us back into not the dark ages, because we want to go back to the dark ages, but this could set us back a few years, because I don't think after this period they're going to get the goodwill. They're not selling 56,000 season tickets next season. Rangers might sell their maximum. We could be going back down to the main hardcore, which is maybe 27,000, 28,000. We could be going down to vast empty spaces in the upper deck of the stands, all because of the decisions that the club have made over the last couple of months. And that will set us back years, unless there's a massive sea change in what happens between now and the end of the season. And I can't see it. They're too arrogant, they're too blinkered to actually make that change. They'll still argue to their last breaths that this trip to Dubai was right. I mean, when anybody in their right mind you can't defend it. You cannot defend this trip in the current circumstances. Anybody that tries to defend it really has to tell me their reasons. And if their reasonings are, we still play international football, what about the Scotland team doing the Congo? Things like that. Forget about the what aboutery. Forget about anybody having birthday parties. Forget about teams sharing cars. It's about Celtic Football Club, and we've absolutely made an utter arse of ourselves.
Aye, it's how we've conducted ourselves, Kevin, and that's what we need to focus on, and that's what we're trying to focus on now. Last week, Russell, we had a conversation around the drop in season ticket sales, and it was the example I gave was the final season under Gordon Strachan, followed by Tony Mowbray's season. Celtic lost 15,000 season tickets in those 2 years. So when Kevin is saying 27, 28, and I last week said 30, people are saying no chance. Celtic will sell 40,000 plus. I don't think so, because you've also got to take into account the financial restraints that the majority of people are now living under. And I think I used this as an example last week, whereby items that were absolutely must-haves become desirables, and they become luxury items after that. And a Celtic season ticket for me and for Kevin, I've been going to the football since 87. First season Kevin got a season ticket, so did I, 1994-95. But circumstances change in the wide economic financial landscape, and we might be looking at a situation where the only way to get the fans back on board is with this sea change that Kevin talks about. We're not going to see it this season, but in the pre-season, moving on to next year, then it wouldn't just be personnel on the pitch, because we're losing faith in the highest reaches of Celtic Football Club. Do you think the club are so arrogant not to see that and not to realise that we really do need big changes at a management level next season, the next pre-season? Yeah,
I do think there is an arrogance with that as well. 100%. I think with everything that's been added to the fact, on the field's been terrible, right? I mean, thought we needed a management change anyway. For a while now, that message has been sort of peddled here, right? And the thing is, with everything that's happening off the field now, the response to the protests, the aloofness, the trip to Dubai, you're now looking at a situation where it's more than just what's happening on the pitch that's going to be able to be altered. So, therefore, if we're going to go for the Jack Ross experiment that Kev talks about, or someone of that ilk, I know what Kev means with that. He's not meaning specifically it has to be him. But
Jack Ross can just move dugouts tonight. He can just move over the night.
Well, someone needs to take the team. I mean, like, if someone of that ilk, though, I mean, if it is that sort of downsizing, then I couldn't agree more. I think you are looking at 30,000. And I find it interesting as well, if you say people are saying no chance, they're only saying 40,000 tickets sold. So there obviously there's a subtle acknowledgement, even in the most positive quarters, that there is going to be a drop. Now, why is there going to be a drop? There's going to be a drop because right now what we're seeing on the pitch isn't good enough. And secondly, because everyone has lost faith and there's a connection gap now between the fans and the PLC that is, so wide, it's unbelievable. I'll leave the analogies to Kev, but there's a huge gap there now. Do you know what I mean? And I just don't think, unless there's a change from the very top right down to the dugout, there is no way you'll get those 50,000. Bear in mind as well, there might not be anyone able to go to games at the start of next season. So they're going to need to pull, a rabbit out the hat rapid. And like we've always said here, we don't see it happening this season. So if it's not going to happen this season, that is a risky strategy when, like you said, they brought out the renewals around March time, was it last year? Well, it's all going to unfold very interesting over the next couple of months. But yeah, I mean, if it stays the status quo, which 100% I think they're arrogant enough to do, then I think you are looking at 30,000, 100%.
Worrying times, Kevin, and we're asking the question, just we said just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, then this happens, and we're now looking at who is going to be in the dugout. Hopefully it's not Jack Ross this evening. Hopefully it's not Strachan in charge of the team and it's Steve McManus and maybe Tommy McIntyre. I would guess it would be Strachan plus two others. I think the only thing that could top this is if Lowell turned up himself in a tracksuit, and sat in the dugout. That would be the only thing that could top what's happened in the last 24 hours.
I'm a bit disappointed with the team that I've read that the Archdeacon's kept his place after his performance last week. I thought Joe Muller should have got in there, When it comes to honey, let's try to lighten this if I can. Ball and Golly will be killing himself laughing in a stand building away. At least he had a bit of female company when he went and had to get himself isolated. It's just, I don't know where we go. I really didn't. This everything just seems to, my head's mush. My head is really mush. I can't even come up with any decent analogies, man. I'm gone. I'm a busted flush.
That's all right, Kevin. We'll keep you going. Brian McLean 19 commenting on Twitter via Periscope. Can you imagine a decent player choosing us in January? This is a good point with this embarrassment unfolding now. We're speaking about the damage to the brands, right? But I don't just mean the brand in terms of selling Celtic-related goods in Germany. I'm talking about the brand as a football club. Why would you want to join this shambles that we find ourselves in? I think that's a good point by Brian McLean. My names in the last couple of days have all been muddled up. Maybe Brian McClare will be in the dugout tonight. I don't know. Ask him to come back. Now, the issue with that is we're looking to try and bring in talent. Let's use Eduard as an example. So an academy player through the PSG ranks, we're looking to try and bring that player and convince that player to come into Celtic Park. And the carrot that we've always used is Champions League football. Put yourself in the shop window, we'll sell you in a couple of years. And it's worked fairly successfully. I think it's drying up quite alarmingly so. How can we still protect the brand, Russell, and still attract players? We're going to need a few players in this January transfer window. I mean, it's going to be forced upon us. We know the situation with Julien, kind of medium-term injury. So is it a fair point that Brian McLean makes?
Brian makes a brilliant point. I think you also need to look at it, again, like I said a minute ago about, renewing tickets. How do you attract players? Well, it's the same thing. Players look at it for two ways, right? First and foremost, you look at a football team, a potential football team to join. What's their ambitions? What's their aspirations? And what's their recent form? So the recent form will be that they've lost the league by X amount of points. We don't know what that will be yet, but if they carry on in the same course we are, it could be a silly number. I do think it'll be less than what it is right now, but it could still be a considerable gap. So you're joining a team that's the underdogs in Scotland. They've got 4 qualifiers to make for the Champions League. Still, because even if they finish second this year, they'll get that. What's their record like qualifying for the Champions League? Abysmal. All right, what they like in the Europa League? Well, they finished bottom of their group last year and they beat Lille in the last day just to stop having the record lowest points of all time. Does that entice you, first and foremost? Secondly, I've got a family. I need to think of my health. Pandemic's still going to be ongoing come the summer. There's still going to be some form of it ongoing. What are they like as a club? Do they protect their players? Are they good that way? No, they jetted them off in January to Dubai mid-pandemic when the pandemic was at its second peak. Come on, mate. I'll no bother signing for them. I'll just leave that one. That is what you're doing to the brand right now. I think these stuff, as we've said about PR disaster, players will be getting made aware of that by agents if we stuff it with, whoa, it's toxic. All that's going to happen is you'll go there, get told you're not match fit, you'll probably sit on the bench for 3 months, and then your value will plummet, and your next club that you're looking at, it'll be a much less signing on for you. I mean, where would someone like Ayeti, for example, go from Celtic if he was to be sold this summer? What has this season done for his career? Now, we need to accept in modern football, players are very career-driven now. They're very about themselves in a lot of ways, unless you get the odd... Well, in fact, you know what? You've got Kieran Tierney as a prime example. I mean, he couldn't be more Celtic-minded, you know what I mean? But still, it's his career first. So if you're trying to get people that don't have a Celtic background to join, and we're performing like we are on the pitch right now, we are embarrassing ourselves on, a national scale with this Dubai trip. And secondly, the welfare of the players as well has got to come into it. You put all that together and you're looking at Scottish Championship players as potential signings now. No disrespect to the Scottish Championship.
Jeff Payne, 13 players. How many needed to get a postponement? I believe the rule is 14. If one of the 14 is not a goalkeeper. So, as long as you've got 14 players fit and one of them's a goalie, you've got to play the game. That is the rule of thumb. And with regards to Scott MC as a game off tonight, it's not, and we are looking at a fairly strong starting 11, but probably a bit of a weakened bench. You're going to have people like Ayeti, I'm guessing, on the bench, Klamala and Cham, Dembele. That type of player will be on the bench, I would expect. Moving on to tonight's game then, and Kevin's given us his view based on what you expect the club to do, Kevin. You reckon that we're going to be trying to pitch our ambitions on a manager at the level of Jack Ross, for example, who has done well at Alloa Athletic, St Mirren. People just write off his time at Sunderland. I mean, he was unlucky at Sunderland, got to the playoff finals, got to a cup final. I think the turnaround rate, the churn rate of staff was something like 54 players in the time that he was there. That's astonishing. So obviously he was working under constraints. Anyone who's actually seen the documentary about Sunderland knows it probably wasn't a great time to be at the club for Jack Ross. Anyway, he's coming to Hibs. I think it's been topsy-turvy for Hibs this season. It's not been perfect. He's doing okay. Do you still believe, Kevin, that given the circumstances, the board could possibly get away with an appointment such as that, should they decide that Neil Lennon's no longer going to be the manager at Celtic?
I think they would, because they would. I think they would try to get away with it. They'll have the banter years trophy to say that we need to retain that. so next season. So because we'll get presented with that at the end of this season. So I think they would try and get Jack Ross in. I have said that. I mean, where do we go? What Russell was saying about clubs being basket case clubs. Sunderland's a basket case club, but guys still went there, and they went there because of money. Mm-hmm. And football's not going to change. A football player who is in a league and he's looking to come to Scotland will still come to Scotland if Celtic pay him £8,000 a week. He's going to look to move to a championship club. So I didn't really see that being a problem. And it's the same with managers. Managers go to basket case clubs all the time. I mean, me and you can say as an outsider looking in that why did Jack Ross go to Sunderland? That was the wrong move. Jack Ross went to Sunderland because of the budget that they were giving him, because of the opportunity they were affording him, because of the size of the club. You get there and it is a basket case of a club, but you still go. So I don't think we'd have any trouble attracting players but it would be the same level of players that would come to Scotland anyway. But I still believe that the board will try and sell as a Jack Ross type appointment.
It will be Strachan and Hewlett-Packard in the dugout, according to Hiking and Biking Scotland. But I do think two members of the coaching staff will need to step in to assist the whole preparation of Celtic tonight. We've seen situations in the past, Kevin, whereby Celtic have been in a state of flux. Managers have come and gone. I think back to the Liam Brady days when he resigned. Joe Jordan took the team for a game, then he resigned. And then further ahead, when Liam Brady came in, Frank Connor looked after a few games, Neely Morecambe was in the dugout, all that kind of stuff. We've got enough coaches at the club, and obviously whoever's next in line will step up. Is it someone like Steve McManus? Isn't Darren O'Day someone along those lines? Probably. Yeah. Would Scott Brown have been utilised if he wasn't isolating? Who knows? I mean, he's got the experience there as well. You're looking at the scenario as it is, Russell, in this season. Let's talk about the game. There's a game of football to play tonight, you know what I mean? And the players have come under a lot of flack. How much are they aware of? I'm sure they're aware of that. They're all kind of au fait when it comes to social media, etc. They'll be aware of the feeling around the club at the moment throughout Scottish football. Does that give them motivation to go out and try and improve themselves again? Particularly after the disappointment of the Rangers game. Do you expect another performance this evening? I mean, we had a few leading up to the Rangers game, and maybe for an hour we played well and we were dominating certain parts of that game against Rangers. Do you expect us, despite everything that's happening, to be able to get a performance tonight?
Well, we did play well, I think, definitely for that hour against Rangers, and I thought the wins ahead of that were really good as well. To be fair, I thought there was a lot of encouraging signs. I think when you listen to John Kennedy's sort of press conference, he seemed already, I mean, obviously he didn't know what was going to happen today, but he seemed already on that sort of defensive sort of mindset of, photos can paint a false picture. And I would imagine that's the sort of mentality they're trying to get throughout the team, like I touched on earlier. Get that sort of siege mentality. Look, the press are after you. John Dykes is after you. Everyone's after you. Do you know what I mean? And try and get that sort of siege mentality built where you're going to show how good you are for the rest of this time. That trip was for the best. These people don't know what they're talking about. And now it's going to be a case of, you're almost the underdog because there's 13 guys out. You're going to rise above. I think the only thing that was a wee bit disappointing was obviously Rangers had a tricky one yesterday and still got the job done. Not to talk about that match at all, but I just think that just added a wee bit more pressure onto this game on the Monday, which is frustrating because I'm pretty sure I'm right. Normally the kick-off between Aberdeen and Rangers would have been the final one of the weekend, wouldn't it? So we would have played Hibs before they did yesterday. But instead we're actually 22 points behind now. Whose
fault's that, Russell?
I know. Oh, I know, and so it's 4 games in hand right now, but it's 22 points, and you can't help but feel that does add an extra weight to it, slightly of pressure.
I'm going to make a point before I do so, Russell, on what you're saying there. Let's go to Mark, who says the current league leaders have signed players. What was their offer? I mean, I think that's a good enough point. You can assemble a collection of players, regardless of the scenario that you find yourself in, who will be able to obviously come in and do a job good enough, if coached well enough within a domestic game. And again, there's criticism flying about for throwing in the towel. I've said to Kevin, my head says Celtic can't win the league this season. My heart will always say that we can. I believe in the Celtic fairy tale, of course I do. But when you're trying to analyse a situation, one of the points that could be made is, when we entered the first lockdown, and we all had our tickets for we all had our tickets. I think about 50 people had tickets for Ibrox. I went up to pick them up, Kevin, and at that stage I had absolutely no doubt in my mind that Celtic were going to win the league, because of the way we were playing, the distance that we were in front of Rangers. At that point, people were talking about COVID saving Gerrard's managerial career at Rangers, etc, etc. At that stage, correct me if I'm wrong, Kev, we were 13 points ahead of Rangers. Yep. Is that right? When we beat St Mirren 5-0 and Lee Griffiths scores a hat-trick. Yeah? We
were 13 points ahead and Rangers had a game in hand.
Rangers had a game in hand against St Johnstone, yeah? Yeah. So the argument could be made on the flip side. Rangers win their game in hand. Rangers win the 2 games against Celtic. 4 points of difference. That's where we are right now. And I just think Celtic fans, granted, we're a couple of months behind, in terms of the amount of games we've got to play. But what I would say is that is the task that we have. It was as big a task as Rangers turning it around last year. So it's just about being realistic. It's not about being negative. It's not about giving Celtic a kicking. It's about looking at the situation, looking at the level of form that Celtic have had all season, the level of form of Rangers, and saying, you know what, it is very unlikely that Celtic are going to turn it around. Let's have a look on the flip side. Let's look at the other possibility tonight. We go out with a weakened squad, let's call it, and I think someone's pointed out that Duffy won't be playing tonight as well, so straight away you're having to shuffle the pack at the back. What if we go out tonight and we're on the end of a defeat? What happens then? Any changes? Russell, I'll come to you first.
No, I don't think they'll make any changes this season, and then obviously they'll have the excuse, even though it's their own doing, that it was a weakened squad. So I think even if the unthinkable tonight happens and there is a defeat, I don't envisage any changes getting made whatsoever at management level, and I think that would be because they've actually created their own excuse that they didn't have a full squad to pick from and they were down to their bare bones on the bench, and it was an understandable defeat.
Kev, what about yourself? If things do get worse this evening, and due to the upheaval, due to everything that's been happening, they're being set up and managed by a makeshift coaching team tonight. And although they might have a starting 11 that should win the game, let's say they don't. Does anything change for you?
Nothing changes, but the pressure on the players now tonight is massive. And I found that in the meetings that Peter Wall had with the Supporters Association, he says the players were taken aback and shocked at the reaction to the defeat against Ross County, as if they didn't realise what this year meant to the Celtic support. And I find that quite weird. And I mean, obviously they have been in, if you pardon the pun, they have been in a bubble because the fans haven't been in the stadiums. But if they didn't know what this season meant to them and they were shocked at the reaction to their performances, then I extremely worry about the man management that's going on at the club. So Russell says they might develop a siege mentality now. I don't think they will. I think this game's got all the hallmarks of being another banana skin, another banana skin. And if that happens, I'm going to sign myself up to that project that sends guys to Mars, because that's got to be better than hiding in a fridge. I think I want to go on that space shuttle and end up going to Mars. What is it, 8 years it takes you to get to Mars? Well, maybe we'll be better in 8 years' time.
Kev, give me a prediction for tonight.
Oh, come on, Paul, you shouldn't have done this to me. My prediction is a turgid 1-0 victory for Celtic.
Russell?
2-1 Celtic, I think, tonight. I think they'll get a couple of goals, but with Bain back in goals, he's conceded a lot this season, unfortunately. I'd imagine him conceding another one.
Okay, right. Now, thank you all for getting involved. There's been loads of comments coming in from a very frustrated, bemused, disillusioned Celtic support. They're coming in from YouTube, Facebook and Twitter, and obviously we'll work through as many as we possibly can. We'll be back on tonight, half an hour before kick-off with Kevin Graham. So all that's left for me to say is Russell Boyce, Kevin Graham, thank you again for joining me on a Celtic State of Mind.
Keep the faith.
Bye.